Our program today is the incredible green swamp, and Peggy Cox is going to be talking. Peggy has lived in South Lake County and advocated for better planning and protection of local and natural water resources for the last 24 years. She was elected twice to the Lake County Water Authority Board, and she served as a board member and president of the Alliance to Protect Water Resources in Lake County. So Peggy, share your screen and
here I am.
Start your presentation.
Thank you. You have pictures.
Trying to share.
He's trying to share. Just a moment, waiting on the starting picture. But I will start with a part of the narrative, which is the green swamp, which has been in the news here recently because there we are. That's fine. Thank you. The green swamp is sometimes called the liquid heart of Florida, but let me tell you what it is really, which is fantastic. It is Florida's second largest wetland system after the Everglades. It is approximately 560,000 acres that covers portions of Polk, Lake, Sumter, Pasco, and Hernando counties. And most importantly, the green swamp is the highest groundwater elevation in the Floridan aquifer. At 132 feet above minimum sea level, the green swamp high provides pressure on the groundwater in the aquifer for potable water, for flow to natural springs, for wetland systems that are the headwaters of 5 major rivers, and the hydrologic support of countless lakes and wetlands. 5 major river systems. I'm going to back up to these signs right now first, because I'm interested to know how many people have noticed them who live within the boundaries of the green swamp area of critical state concern, which I'll show you a map of in a few minutes. I'm not sure how many years ago it was, but I felt that with the growing population and the boom of suburban and urban growth in South Lake County, we needed to identify the boundaries of the area of critical state concern. And it was decided to be an area of critical state concern in 1972. This was not a new decision. This came about, it was designated, I'm sorry, in 1974, but the legislation that provided us to do that was the Environmental Land and Water Management Act of 1972, which contained provisions for designated an area of critical state concern for the environment. At that time, Disney World was just starting, and there were a lot of people, even people, large landowners and businessmen in the citrus industry, who realized that the impact of the tourism business in the Disney World area could have a considerable impact on the natural resources out here that they relied on in their businesses. So the state at that time designated the green swamp and drew some boundaries which go into Polk County, and as I named up before, Lake, Sumter, Polk, Pasco, and Hernando counties. And that was done to prevent development within that area because of it being the headwaters of 5 major rivers, and because it was the green swamp high that provided the pressure on the groundwater that we drink. Just south of the Lake Polk County line is sort of the center of this section of the aquifer. It's where the green swamp high, as it's called, is located, 132 feet above mean sea level. That's the highest point west of the Lake Wales Ridge. The Lake Wales Ridge, as you know, runs through the center of Florida, and to the west is a green swamp, and then there's a smaller ridge, Brooksville Ridge, and then over to the Gulf of Mexico. There are 5 major ridges, and so these signs, these signs former county commissioner Elaine Rennick helped me get them, the county, to make them and put them up. There's one at each county road that enters the Green Swamp, 561, 565, 565B, and one over in Mascot who's 5, I can't remember now, and another one down near Lake Lona. When I first had them put up, people said, well, they're misspelling. Floridan is wrong. It should be Floridian. It's not. It's the Floridan aquifer. And one of the leading hydrologists who helped get these protections for the aquifer came up with that name, Floridan. And so that's not a mistake. It's not a boo-boo by the sign makers. It's the way it's supposed to be. In the beginning, a lot of people didn't like the signs. They would knock them down. Some of them would even shoot through them. But I did a little survey the other day, and it seems that most of them are standing and in good tack. So I think that's important. Can go to the next one. There are 5 major river systems that begin in the Green Swamp. The 2 most largest ones are the Withlacoochee River and the Ocklawaha River, which flow northerly from the Green Swamp High. The Ocklawaha River flows through, has two headwaters. One is Lake Apopka through that way, and the other is down here in the Green Swamp through Big and Little Creek, as they're called, through the Claremont chain of lakes, up the Platlakaha River, all the way to Lake Harris on the southwestern end where the little Platlakaha River comes in. It's not navigable in a boat except in short distances, but it's the same water that starts down here that flows north. We also have flowing from the center southwesterly is the Hillsborough River over to the Tampa River, and flowing south all the way down the middle of the state is the Peace River. And there is still, they think, historically connected to the Green Swamp through Davenport Creek, a link to the Kissimmee River that would, on the west side of Highway 27. That's a question that is usually argued about at any meeting of hydrologists. So we'll go to another one. This shows you how the aquifer is over the state of Florida. This comes from Southwest Florida Water Management District. And right here in the middle is this blue egg where and you can't read the writing very well because it just blurs without blowing it up. The aquifer is close to 2,000 feet deep there, and it has no confining layer. There are portions of South Lake County where you can wade yourself into a marsh or a wetland and be standing in the aquifer. This is very important. This line right here that I'm going over is the county line between Lake County up here and Polk County down here. Most of this area is highly protected under the Green Swamp Area of Critical State Concern rules. The density of any development is listed to 1 house or 1 barn for every 20 acres. This is where the sand mining controversy continues, as it has for quite a few years. As of now, as of a few days ago, the new sand mining controversy about another sand mine going in has stopped. The sand mine company withdrew their application. And so we'll see how that goes. But you can see that south of about right here, right about the beginning of Lake Okeechobee, the aquifer, everything flows to the north, St. Johns River, everything flows north out of here, except the few things coming over to the Hillsborough River and over to the Tampa Bay area. The Everglades system is completely separated from this system, and you can see the difference in the folks down in South Florida don't have potable water. The aquifer is used for potable water. It's used for all kinds of reasons and systems, and it's been it's been going on now since 1974, so it takes a while. The green swamp though existed and people knew about it. People who lived in Florida, old time Floridians, knew about it, lived in it. One go to the next one. Can you go to the next one? Okay, well, this is a nice picture of the Withlacoochee River at Orange Lake in Green Swamp Wilderness East. Southwest Florida Water Management District has thousands of acres in recreational and native habitat. Green Swamp Wilderness East, and Green Swamp Wilderness West, which I forget the amount that they actually cover, somewhere in the vicinity of 110,000 acres between Polk Lake and Sumter counties, because they also have some that connects in going north into. So that is all protected, and the waters that come through there. The designation of an area of critical state concern was done by the state when in the 1970s, when they felt that there was a threat to some very serious areas of the state. The Green Swamp was one area of critical state concern, and right now the map is up on the screen that shows you the boundaries. You can see where my arrow is at 27. And right here's Lake Louisa and Lake Minnehaha, downtown Claremont, Lake Mineola. And then it goes around. All of this area is within the area of critical state concern, and there are restrictions and things on how land can be used. You can see the direction of the ridges here from Lake Wales, and then over here you get into the waterways, wetlands, all the way down here, all the way over here. This is a huge the Withlacoochee River and the Little Withlacoochee River, and all of that flows north and northwest. So, and some of this is conservation lands, the state and the county. Like I said, Swift Mud has purchased approximately 110,000 acres. And in public ownership, things like Colt Creek State Park, Hilochie, Lake Louisa State Park, another 84,000 acres. The Department of Environmental Protection has over 9,000 acres under conservation easements. Lake County itself has purchased 800 acres in the Green Swamp. It's called the Pasture. It's off Lake Erie Road. And all of these lands are accessible by the public with hunting and fishing areas, hiking, trail riding, bird watching, camping, and many wild and scenic lands to just sit there and learn. 98% of these lands are open year round. The areas of critical state concern remain in effect. The ones other than the Green Swamp are the Keys, from Key West to Key Largo. That was and they have worked on that. It is still not considered as protected as it should be. And as we all know, with the possibility of sea level rise and warming of the oceans, it's very necessary. Big Cypress Preserve near the Everglades is another area of critical state concern. And a small town up near Apalachicola was originally one of the areas due to a wastewater problem that was going into the Gulf of Mexico, but that has been resolved. So there are less than there are. There's a long history to the Green Swamp. And before it was preserved, and this shows you, oh, well, I had forgotten about the Central Water Initiative, which went on a few years ago to try and get people to conserve more, and it covered these areas. We were considered in danger of losing our ability to have potable water. Seminole County, parts of Orange, parts of Lake Osceola, parts of Polk. And that was, there have been several initiatives, and they have been somewhat successful in doing that and going along. This shows you the vulnerability of the Floridan aquifer. This comes also from Southwest Florida Water Management District hydrologists. This is at least a 10-year-old map of, well, 2009, of where we are most vulnerable to aquifer losing parts of the aquifer, not being able to use them. And as you can see in the center of the state, so many lands are suffering from lack of water. The aquifer depends upon rainfall and some infilling from underground sources coming in, but for the most part, it's rainfall. Where we live, it's calculated at an average of 13 inches a year of normal rainfall. We have not had normal rainfall now for a year, maybe 2 years, and you can see that in some areas as things, but it is a natural phenomenon. There's not much to be done about it. You can't take water from one place and put it in another. This area down near the Everglades is less vulnerable, but they have their own issues with water. So we're dealing with this one alone. There is a priority area from the Central Florida Water Initiative about trying to make sure there's not irreparable damage to the Floridan aquifer. And because a large part of the green swamp has been preserved for its environmental and hydrologic values, the forests and swamps and rivers have previously and historically been used for a variety of economic endeavors. The original inhabitants of the green swamp, one more please, that one's not, were the Seminole Indians. And they were driven out of the green swamp, their villages destroyed by one of the bloodiest, most expensive wars in US history. The Second Seminole War started in December of 1835. It's called the Dade Massacre. There's a book written by Gloria Yahoda, Jahoda, called The Second Seminole War, which describes in detail how the war began and how it went along and what happened to the various other people, including Chief Micanopy, the chief of the Second Seminole War. The Seminoles lost, and those that were here went, there's a cabin of people who also, and the Seminoles lost, and most of them were driven west, northwest. Those who stayed went down towards the Everglades, where most of the Seminole settlements still are today. There's a gentleman who was named Lee Gramling who used to write a lot of what are called cracker westerns, and he wrote one about the Green Swamp, Ghosts of the Green Swamp. It was a very popular thing. And also the Overstreet family, which dedicated a lot of the land for Colt Creek State Park, just south of Green Swamp West, has written several books on early settlers and families. Carol Overstreet lives in Polk County, and her family is, she's the author of Gator Creek. So there, and a couple of new books that I don't have the names for just yet. But the real tragedy in the Green Swamp was the complete complete vanishment of the beautiful, huge bald cypress trees and longleaf pine. If you go to the west of here, the General James Van Fleet biking and hiking trail that runs from State Road 50 all the way down into Polk County was the original railroad, which ran through the Green Swamp to take out the logs. And they were huge logs, one more, just you can see. This is the size of the bald cypress that they took out. At the Water Authority, the gentleman who's now our Water Authority Director, Executive Director, Ron Hart, and a board member at that time, Kelly Pitcher, realized that there was also an old railroad running east-west, just south of what is now 474, that they had removed the tracks, but the structure of it was impeding the flow of water north, especially through Little Creek. And people were complaining and we had the terrible drought. So they went in and completely cleaned all that up and reestablished the flow, but it was because of the massive amount of timbering that went on. All of the old bald cypress are gone. There are no, as far as I know, and as far as most people who write about this and study it know. Longleaf pines, you find a few of them. Longleaf pines, as you know, take a little longer to grow than the standard pine that the paper industry uses. So, but the ruination of the original habitat was almost complete. There's just not, now there wasn't much left. So luckily now we try to take better care of it. We, at that time, the wilderness lands were mainly used for hunting. And the gentleman on the slide that was just before this one is standing there too. Loram Brown was a hunting guide, and he lived in the Green Swamp up here near Claremont, and he was very famous for his ability to guide some of the wealthier people who would come here for a hunting trip. You see what's left of a turkey, or maybe two turkeys that met their demise with him. He and his family lived in a log cabin. I don't know that there are any more to be found out there, but those were the way people lived, the few who lived out there. This is the Green Swamp. I'm looking for the really quick because oh, here we go. The Green Swamp is really considered one of the most ecologically diverse land mass in Florida and even in the Southeast. There's an estimated 330 species of flora and fauna, and wildlife in increasing numbers is coming into the Green Swamp because we're growing so much on the outside and taking up habitat. So the Green Swamp is home to more than 30 threatened or endangered species, including Florida scrub jays, American kestrels, who are like small hawks, wood storks, which are federally protected, and sandhill cranes. This is an awfully cute picture with the two chicks, the two colts as they're called. Florida sandhills are also threatened. Gopher tortoises, as you know, and we have some new rules made in the last few years about you can't just bulldoze stuff in front of their burrow and go about your business. You can't do that anymore, which is a good thing. Also, gopher, a frog called gopher frogs, sand skinks, eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, short-tailed snakes. These are all considered threatened species, and they exist in the Green Swamp. There are more butterflies counted. A lady who worked for the state years ago told me there are more butterflies counted in the Green Swamp butterfly surveys than in any other part of Florida. And I don't know how good her recollection is, but in an annual count in 2008, they found 61 species, which was the highest count for a geographic area in 2008. In 2010, they had their first bird count, or one of the first, at Colt Creek State Park. And in connection with the bird count, they found 79 butterfly species. So, and these are black swallowtails. This is the giant swallowtail. Next one, please. And this is the state butterfly, the zebra longwing, which loves the next flower you're going to see. The passionflower. This is the purple passionflower, which this Native Plant Society is named for. They grow, if you've ever had any on your property, they can really grow and grow fast, but they are beautiful. And the butterflies love them. And they grow, especially if we get a good amount of rain, just all over certain types of habitat in the Green Swamp. We also have this a picture of pitcher plants that I took in Green Swamp Wilderness East on a field trip a few years ago. And they tend to come up, and they are considered threatened, and they don't grow in except in certain kinds of habitat. And this is a swamp orchid, I believe. There we go. It's a water orchid. I don't know the name of it. I couldn't find anybody who knew the name of it, and I couldn't, but I was on this same, because you can see the woods behind it, and this was sort of a damp, wet area. And so we took that picture of, called it a water orchid. I'm going to run through. So there is so much you can do in the green swamp. This is one of the preserve trails on the eastern side, which starts just over the Lake Polk County border. And this is Bridge Road in the west side, which is over towards 470, going towards Dade City. They have bridge, dirt roads, and unfortunately, in my opinion, they have roads for ATVs and other things that make noise and go fast. But there's plenty of room for hiking and walking and bicycle riding and camping. They have camping also. So this is a picture of a stream which I have lost the name of. It was in the probably attached to the Withlacoochee system, because all these little creeks and all run into it. And this is a cypress tree. This is not a very big cypress tree, but it's a healthy one. So the more we can get, the better the habitat is right around the water for the different animals. This is a picture. Let's go one more and look at the state is trying to encourage recharge areas, conservation of these lands. This is called the Pine Island Recharge Area. It's very familiar to, we're sitting in it as we speak at a friend's house doing this from here. This is the lakes, the Claremont chain of lakes. And this goes all the way to State Road 50. And these areas are considered essential parcels that the state thinks should have conservation easements over them. We unfortunately have lost a battle right in this area, in the Pine Island Recharge Area, for someone who figured out a way to put in a small subdivision at 1 house per acre instead of the existing density of 1 to 5. All of those houses on septic tank, and all of those houses either having to have wells or he's putting in a small system. But you can see this is 561 coming down out of, and it goes all the way to State Road 33. This is part of, this is High Lochie over here in Lake Louisa State Park. But these different patches of farmland and what used to be orange groves and now are considered very important towards recharge, especially this close to town. But it's hard to tell whether we're going to get them. There are, as far as they could tell at the time they put together their summary evaluation, there were no rare plants documented on site, but there were gopher tortoises, bald eagles, and sandhill cranes documented as being on site, and also Sherman's fox squirrels, which are considered endangered. So, but I'm sure if they had gone far enough back into the woods and stomped around long enough, they would have found some of the most beautiful plants that exist in these areas. So this is one of the things that happened. This is a picture taken, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know how. This is a.
They can't see it.
Okay, you all can't see it, so let's just go. I appreciate you listening to my plea for the green swamp. It is being, every day it gets squeezed a little more. It is a huge area, but it is rich in so many ways, in plants, in animals, and in just this. The view, actually, this was the view from the front yard of the home I owned on 8 acres quite a few years ago in the Pine Island recharge area. That was the view of my swamp, which was beautiful. And, you know, sometimes people just need to look at that instead of another housing development. So we want you to be aware of how important this is and how the constant pressure that goes on to expand and use land and not just let it be habitat for us and the animals we share the planet with. I do not mean to suggest that people shouldn't get a chance to move to a lovely area like this or to have a new home. I don't. I just think we need to be more vigilant in how we do it. And we need to stop doing it as cheaply and fastly as we think we can and do it the right way. So people get better homes and we get better things. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the Green Swamp. And if anyone has any questions that we don't answer, let me give you some information if you don't know about it. The University of South Florida maintains water atlases online for quite a few counties in the state of Florida. Lake County, through the Lake County Water Authority, has a marvelous water atlas. Every lake that's named is listed. All sorts of facts that we can get to about a water body are on these atlases. Orange County has a marvelous one. Seminole County has one. Volusia County has one. You can go online and look at information about the lake you may be interested in. Is it having problems? Is it good? Is there some way you're interested in it? Maybe you're going to buy a house on it, at which point you really want to know more about it there. And so the Claremont chain of lakes is still remarkably clean and only has had one big surprise event last year before last year, I guess, with algae bloom, which we have just finished the last treatment for to clear up, and hopefully it won't happen again. But as you know, it's an never ending battle to keep the water clean and to do it. But we have in the Claremont chain and the Harris chain, which is being cleaned up through the water that's coming out of Lake Apopka, has to run through a nutrient reduction facility to take out the nutrients that have ruined Lake Apopka before it's allowed to go further down the Apopka-Beauclair Canal into Lake Beauclair and Lake Carlton and Lake Dora, etc. So the world is working on this. Hope you'll join us. If you have any other questions, please don't, you can ask us now, or if you want to have Melanie send me an email through her or something, I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Green Swamp.
Well, thanks, Peggy. I'm going to ask you a question after I do a couple of polls here. Let me see if I can. Going to launch a poll, so everyone weigh in. In total, how many named lakes in Lake County depend on the aquifer, which means they depend on the Green Swamp? So I'm going to end the polling and share the results. Peggy, can you see that? You're muted though. Peggy, you're muted.
Yes, I can see that.
So tell us if the answers are correct.
Well, everything I've been told is that it's over 1,400. I'd like to meet the person who counted them. 1,200 is a close guess, but there are a lot of smaller lakes up in the Ocala National Forest and down in the Green Swamp area that people really don't see very often. So they can be forgiven for thinking it's only 1,200. But even that is a phenomenal number when you look at the amount of acreage we're dealing with. We've got water everywhere.
Yep. Okay, another question, and this is going to test if you paid attention during Peggy's presentation. What direction does water flow from the Green Swamp into Lake County?
It's too easy.
So everyone was paying attention, yay.
Good.
Um,
Very good. That's wonderful.
Okay. So the next question. What do the green signs that say entering the green swamp heart of the Floridan aquifer mark? The boundary of the 870 square mile green swamp basin, the boundary of the green swamp area of critical state concern, the boundary of green swamp conservation lands, none of the above.
B.
Okay, it looks like everyone has answered.
Well, that's correct. And unfortunately, I think I wasn't clear enough on, because I would go between the area of critical state concern, the green swamp. I'm just so used to calling the whole thing the green swamp. But they are at the boundaries where you go into the area of critical state concern. So yay, 67%. That's wonderful.
The next one, let's see. Where do you live? Inside or outside the area of critical state concern?
I live outside now. You don't though. But you live inside. Yeah. Do you live inside? No. 57% said no. 43% said yes. Yay, people actually here.
And this last question sort of tests what you know about the natural communities. So this is a multiple choice. You should be able to choose as many or as few of those as you think appropriate.
I want all of them. Especially you got 560,000 acres.
So actually, it does contain upland habitats and sandhills, and those areas are very important for the recharge of the aquifer.
There are more of the other ones though that everyone picked, but you're right. The upland habitats and the sandhills and the oak scrub are still important, and there are still habitats like that.
So that does it for the polling I have. My question is, what can we as citizens do to help protect the green swamp? What are some of the actions we can take? I mean, I can think of one right off the top of my head, which is the fertilizer ordinance. And that's what, 2 or 3 years old now. It specifies a low nitrogen fertilizer as the only one that's appropriate to use, and it prohibits, no? You're muted again.
No, the problem is I don't think there's any county enforcement when they see someone doing something that is with the fertilizer ordinance, whether they're applying fertilizer at the wrong time and
Because you're prohibited from applying it from June through September, I believe.
yeah, I would,
And within, I forget how many feet of a body of water.
and that's another huge problem, the runoff of fertilizer from a lawn into the lake or onto the road and then over the road and down to the lake. It's where 50% of the wastewater comes, that and from traffic from streets. But we have ways of fixing the traffic problem, and we work on that. Individuals have to try and understand how serious this fertilizer problem is getting to be.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Another thing, which we tried to promote as when this sand mine initiative was going, was sending emails and going to commissioner, the county commission meetings to comment on some of the things that they will potentially allow to, go on in terms of development in the Green Swamp area. What else, if anything, can you think of that we should all be doing as good citizens?
Well, I think when you live in one of the cities, I live inside the city limits of Claremont now, and their city council wants to hear what the citizens are upset about or what to do. And I don't think, and I realize sometimes if you have a full-time job and all the responsibilities of family or other things, it's like, oh, another thing I have to do. But if something's really important to you or you think is very important, you go and sign in and you will get to speak. They may limit you to 3 minutes, but the same thing with the county commission. The problem with the county commission is that they start at 9 o'clock on a weekday morning. Well, people are going to work, or they're there at 9 o'clock on a weekday morning. The Lake County Water Authority starts their meetings once a month on a Wednesday afternoon at 3:30. So if you've got a complaint or something about water that you want answered, you can call them or you can go to the meeting and sign a speaker card, and they have public speakers at the beginning, as does the county commission at the beginning of the meeting. So you don't have to sit there for 3 hours for your turn. So I think it's very important for people to do that. And it's, and sometimes even if you do it just once, it lodges in a elected official's brain, and they begin to think about it and learn about it, and it starts a whole process that can maybe change it.
I also saw that there were some initiatives about trying to educate people about keeping yard waste out of the storm drains, because that all the water that goes into the storm drains eventually ends up in our lakes. Is that correct?
Most of it, yes, not all of it, but most of it does, yes. The Water Authority had a program for years. I think they still have it, and they where they coordinated with Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops and all, and they have these little stick-on little signs that they would put right on the top of the storm drain to say, somehow to the effect, I don't know the exact wording, do not put leaves or yard waste in here. Water goes directly to the lake, that sort of thing. And the kids like to do that. A lot of kids will do that as a project, or a whole group of them, and Sunday school class or Cub Scouts or something. And the more of them we do it, the more that somebody may see the sign and go, oh, okay, well, I'll find a way, I'll get a bag and bag it up and let the trash people take it to the disposal area instead of having it flow into the water. So if you ask the water authority if they're still doing that, you can call them and ask them, and they have, I think they still have that equipment and the little stickers. They're not little, they're about this big around that you can use.
I don't remember the picture of the orchid that you had, but I'm going to share something to see if, does that look like the orchid that you had a picture of?
It sure does. It looks very similar. Yes, there, that looks like the orchid I took a picture of. The longhorned rain orchid. Wow.
And
Yeah.
if I scroll down here and you look at the map, this is its natural range in Florida, which looks pretty similar to the green swamp map.
Yeah, right in the middle of it. It was a beautiful flower, and I couldn't find any more. I've never seen another one. I just haven't had an opportunity, but I'm glad you looked that up because
Yeah.
I couldn't find what it was. I went through several books of plants and this sort of thing, and I couldn't find it. But it's a
And
beautiful one.
I don't know if it's threatened or endangered. This website doesn't say, but it's interesting because it's pollinated by moths.
Oh,
So,
there are some other flowers I know that moths are the pollinators. I don't know the names of them, but I've been told about them. But
yeah. So,
that's a very interesting comment there under landscapes that recommended use. It said, keep it if you want it, keep it. So don't, I imagine they're rather delicate if you're not too careful around them.
probably. And Pete commented in the questions about the fertilizer ordinance. He says, no phosphorus, ban on fertilizing during summer, have to have barriers along the lake edge, slow release fertilizer, no cutting on hard surfaces to prevent wash into storm drains. Donna asks, how do we access the University of South Florida water atlases?
You need to find in our community, it's the Lake County Water Authority, which has the water atlas on its website. The University of South Florida just runs these, and in Orange County, I think you could take a county name and just type in a web search, Orange County Water Atlas, and see if it won't come up, or Seminole County. I've never gone to the University of South Florida on the computer to see where all of them are, but they are the people, because we pay them $25,000 a year to make sure ours is up to date and to help us keep it on our website. So your tax dollars at work. This is probably going to get me in trouble, but it's just the South Florida. But you just use the county name and water atlas, and you should get some connections when you go online and just search for it.
Yeah, we'll take a look for it and we'll post it on the Passionflower website along with the recording of this program.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, so does anyone else have another question? No, it doesn't sound like it. Well, thank you very much, Peggy, for sharing all your knowledge and your passion about the Green Swamp.
Thank you for letting me do it.
And we appreciate it. We hope that, we're all being good citizens and that this information that you provided today will help us, be a little more active about protecting this area that we live in.
Yeah. Well, if you want to have good water to drink, or you want your kids or grandkids to have it in this area, we've got to we've got to take better care because
Yeah.
the water is going to diminish if we just use it willy-nilly wherever we want, whenever we want. Somebody calculated that a hydrogeologist who worked with either NOAA or some federal agency, that in most, a lot of states or a lot of city, county areas, up to 90%, up to 50% of the water that's withdrawn from the water resource, whether it's a big lake or an aquifer, goes to watering of lawns and landscapes. That's 50%. I don't think you can continue to do that and have water to be able for potable drinking water and for the water that runs our springs. Some of our springs are running dry because they're getting 50% less inflow from the aquifer. So, you know, if you don't like springs, that's fine, but still there's a lot of animals and habitat and people who like them. So it's worth the effort, and it won't hurt your lawn one little bit to not get water every day.
And that's one of the things that native plant people believe in, because native plants in general require less water.
Right, that's true. They're used to the weather and the habitat, so you don't have to baby them and think you have to put more water or more fertilizer or something on them. They do just fine with the minimum amount of care as long as they're in the right habitat.
Right. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we'll end this. Thanks again, Peggy, and thanks
Thank you.
everybody for being interested in this topic. And hopefully you learned a little bit more about this area we're living in. I don't know if any of you went on our Green Swamp field trip a couple of weekends ago, but we sort of traced the water flow from the high area to the low areas at Lake Louisa. So it was interesting. It was interesting to see the path the water takes. And maybe we'll try to do something like that again. So I will end this now, and thanks very much.